One of my favorite genres in video games has to be the Metroidvania genre. The progression, the combat, the exploration, everything comes together in one enjoyable package when done right. So when a Metroidvania game comes along on Steam, I take notice. And when that game is done by a developer of a game that I've enjoyed previously, I definitely have to cover it. From the creator of UnEpic, Ghost 1.0 takes the humor of UnEpic and transfers it from the fantasy world to sci-fi. The game sells on Steam for the normal price of $12, with a very specific 16% discount on launch for a price of $10.91. It came out on Tuesday, June 7th, 2016, and I played the game for approximately 12 to 18 hours and beat the game. That's a large gap, and you're probably wondering why. Well, I left the game on accidentally for a bit of time, and I'm unsure what the numbers truly are. My bad on that one. But let's get back to the big question. Can the combat and exploration gameplay earn a chunk of your hard-earned cash? Or will the vacuum of the game's problems drag the game out into the darkness of space? That's what I'm here to find out. But before I begin, this key was obtained from the developer for the purposes of review. That won't change my opinion of the game in the end, but you should know that because of FTC guidelines, as well as the whole morals thing, you know? Let's start with the story. You are Ghost, who's literally a ghost. Well, sorta. It's unclear exactly what she is at first. She's a sorta urethral AI combination that's able to take control of Nakas, which are basically androids. She feels like someone put Cortana and Samus Aran and mixed them up in a blender, which you could do a lot worse than that for a main protagonist. Ghost is a mercenary who's been contracted by two guys, Boogan and Jacker, to break into a space station to hack it from the inside. You're trying to combat the Nakamura Corporation, a robotics company that is seemingly up to some nefarious things. It's your job to follow the orders of this dynamic duo, as you learn little by little about what's going on at the space station. During this quest, you'll uncover facts that change the landscape and understanding of not only what they are fighting, but Ghost herself. Now, those who played UnEpic know that the developer's story presentation is done with a lightheartedness, but there's a couple of really interesting story elements that play under Ghost 1.0's surface. Specifically, it hits some themes about the human condition and the rights of those who may not be considered part of mainstream society. I was actually surprised. While I expected it to play with tropes and to reference geek culture, I didn't expect the execution of some of the bigger themes here and how it was all well done. And just like UnEpic, Ghost 1.0 is an homage to gaming and geek culture that came before it. You'll spot several references in the main plot, like odes to retro video games and 80s sci-fi movies. These are done tastefully and always make sense given the characters involved, and it feels like a lot of time was put in to make sure the writing fit naturally with these jokes. In addition, you can find collectible geek power-ups that will change the presentation slightly, like turning the minimap into an ASCII map, or having a certain nod to a stealthy reptile from gaming's past when you die.
Ghost, what happened? Ghost! Ghost!
If you consider yourself a geek from the 80s or 90s in particular, Ghost 1.0 is going to be in your wheelhouse in terms of its references and its jokes. From Blade Runner to A Space Odyssey, you'll feel like the game is catering to your tastes. And of course, with my scoring system, that's most certainly an enhancer. Well, how about the presentation? Ghost 1.0 isn't your Ori in the Blind Forest, and it isn't necessarily going to knock you out with stunning visuals. But a game doesn't necessarily need to, and Ghost 1.0 is able to present you a world and its characters in an interesting way, with some tricks and some detail that still makes it nice to look at. Now you're on a space station. Its interior ranges from a garden area to the steel hallways that line its walls. This is done in a pretty pulled back perspective, as Ghost may only take up less than 1% of the screen at a time. It may be too far back, considering the level of detail that the game puts into its environments and its models. It's still nice to look at, don't get me wrong. It's just that I feel like the perspective could have helped the game a tiny bit more if implemented differently. The levels will start to blend together at times in terms of layout, despite having reasonable variety there. It's just a consequence of the design they were going for, and I won't hold that against the game. But it does lead to some confusion at times, especially when you need to know where to go. I did get lost frequently, which in an exploration game isn't necessarily a bad thing, it's just frustrating at times. However, there's a real attention to detail that I really have to point out here. Just take a look at the background here, and see that you can actually see ghost reflection. It's that detail that you probably won't notice until you're looking for it. I give the developer credit, there's obviously a lot of work that went into this, and I appreciate what kind of effort it would have taken to make this presentation. UI-wise, it's alright. You've got a good amount of the information of what you need on screen. Gun selections, mission information, ammo counts. Now personally, there is something that I really like to see in games like this in terms of UI, and that's having a mini-map, because I get really tired of having to constantly pause and look at the map to see where I'm going. If not that, at least have something like a marker on screen to show a marked point on the map of where I need to go. There's one other problem I have, however, and that's something that actively harms the gameplay portion, and that's the reticle. Now, depending on the weapons you have equipped, that reticle will change its size and shape based on what you're aiming at. I'll get into the actual implementation later on, but that's not my problem. What my problem here is the color and the thickness. It's very easy to lose where the reticule is on screen at some times, as the small lines end up blending into the background. This happened constantly with all the action that was going on, and it did get a bit annoying. Moving from the visuals, sound design in terms of audio quality is good. Things are distinct and make appropriate sounds for your lasers firing or taking damage. I definitely noticed when the sound was turned off in my testing as well. The combat implementation in particular gives you tons of hints of what's to come, as clear indicators to dodge or to use a health pack really helped. It's not overbearing, but appropriate for this gameplay. Voice acting may not be the best here, but it actually really works. It's the awkward presentation at times that it really does right, and I hate to say it, but it feels geekish in nature, which is what it is going for. It's not winning any awards, but it's not taking you out of the moment either, at least not until it actually tries to take you out of the moment.
Been wondering,
Uh-oh, that can't be good.
what's your real name? And what country are you from?
I'm afraid that information is classified, Operations Chief.
Music-wise, it's appropriate to the gameplay in question, and there is some catchy themes here, especially in the first part of the game. As the game goes on, however, the music still works, it just never hits the level of those first few tracks. Regardless, it's a reasonable selection, so take a listen. But okay, now that I've got everything else out of the way, let's get to the heart of the game, its gameplay. Remember, this is a Metroidvania at its core, so its gameplay divides into several segments: combat, exploration, and gathering every single upgrade known to man. Let's start at the core of the gameplay, however, with Ghost herself, and move from there. Ghost starts the game with the ability to jump, carrying one primary weapon along with 3 secondary weapons that you can find along the way. Using the mouse and keyboard, you fire at a specific area of the screen using your reticule, but note specifically its shape and size at the time. Unlike other games of the genre, your bullets do have spread on them in this case, and depending on the weapon being used, it'll show you that spread based on the size of the reticule. This means the game does have an emphasis on accuracy, and you'll need it, as the game won't go easy on you in terms of enemies or firepower. Control-wise, you're gonna want to use the mouse and keyboard due to the emphasis on accuracy. While it is playable with a controller, the game doesn't do as well with it. Sure, moving may have a tiny bit more precision just with the control stick alone, but I found that I missed a lot more shots with the controller. And with the ammo as it is in this game, you're probably not going to want to miss that many in the end. Now, speaking of firepower, that's where the game may stumble for people. Your weapons are infinite. Sorta. You do have an ammo counter for each weapon, and that ammo will regenerate over time. Now, early on in the game, when you only have one weapon and some enemies to deal with, that may seem fine. But where the problem can develop is if you don't find a secondary weapon by the time you get to the second set of stages. The problem here is simple. Your primary weapon will run out of juice, and well, you'll be running around with no way to fight back. Secondary weaponry can hit a bit of variety, some of them being a little bit silly to say the least. The cybernetic frog launcher is odd, but okay, I can dig it. But I'm gonna be honest here, it's all about the sheer numbers in this case. Whether it be a shotgun or a famous knight named Glenn launcher, yes, that's a reference, it's really just about getting the rhythm of firing, regardless of the weapons being used, even though they're all unique in their different ways. So it makes sense that I talk a little bit more about the combat. As you move from room to room, you have a variety of enemies thrown at you, from turrets that will snipe you from a distance, to bots that will charge you and spit some poison air at you. You'll need to stay mobile and take out enemies while picking up ammo recharges and health packs along the way, as you fight towards the next objective that the game has given you. The game puts a good emphasis on combat early, and doesn't slow down on it too much over time. And, luckily, it is a challenge with the way that everything is designed. Combat is chaotic, and that's a good thing to a point. There's enough variety in enemies and different weaponry involved that it feels fresh, and it's helped a bit by the different arenas that you'll fight in and the change up in enemy mechanics. The enemies are where the game is at its strongest in terms of combat, when it introduces a bot that you can only hit from a certain side, or a ninja bot that will fall into the shadows after it throws some shuriken at you. And while it keeps a reasonable pace, that doesn't mean it never changes the pace either, as it goes from a small section that you'll have to move through with direct purpose to, oh god, everything is on fire and I need to get out of here right away. The aforementioned fire usually comes in the form of alarms that get progressively more tough as you run into more of them. When stuck in an alarm, you'll have a time challenge that you'll have to fight your way out of, as Jacker tries to take down the alarm as fast as he can, while you just try to survive the onslaught of enemies. At first, these alarms are a nice little test of your skills and give you some good energy bonuses, but don't be fooled. Soon, you'll be in for a fight every single time an alarm comes up, as the alarm level gets higher and higher and it tests every aspect of your combat abilities. And maybe a little beyond that. See, this is where the inconsistency in combat starts to develop. It's a combination of two things, the level design and the random enemy placement, in particular with the alarms. The game can spawn a set of enemies that will not only cover the screen in bullets, but literally will give you nowhere to run to. From repeated tests, the enemy spawn can be random in numbers and in type, which in certain cases can lead to some pretty chaotic situations. Maybe even no-win situations. Situations where there's nowhere to run on screen and you're taking damage constantly. Which wouldn't necessarily be a problem, considering that you can get out of it in certain cases, just with a lot of damage taken. Boss-wise, it's what you should expect from a Metroidvania game. Bosses with unique mechanics that will push your skills to the limit. And this may be the highlight of the game's combat. Sure, there may be a gimmick or two in a boss fight, like having to destroy a slime pipeline so that the boss can't recover her energy. But in every case, it gives you a reasonable challenge, forcing you to react on the fly, as bosses will turn your firepower against you or lure you in with sweet repair kits, only to take a chunk out of you when you go for them. You'll have to outsmart them, and you'll die several times trying to beat them. And I wouldn't have it any other way. Now, combat is only one side of things, as getting through levels will also require you to use your head and resources around you. There are plenty of trap rooms, or rooms that require a puzzle-like solution having to deal with the bots in the space station. And luckily, Ghost has one special ability to help her in that. See, she can take control of enemy bots by leaving her body and taking over theirs. This does leave her main shell vulnerable at that time, so be sure she's safe before you do it, or you'll end up at the end of some lasers. While taking over another bot, you may be able to interact with certain objects, or destroy other bots that would have given you problems in your regular form. It's always a puzzle in how to use the bots in the right way, as you set up a series of bots to try to get through a laser room, for example, trying to figure out what combination you need, while not really caring if you fail, considering that you can just try again with a new bot. It's a good change of pace from the combat, even if it can get very frustrating at times as you try to get the right timing down and keep on failing. Actually, those who are susceptible to repeat failure frustration, aka getting frustrated after 5 to 10 failed attempts at something, you may want to avoid this game. I definitely ran into it repeatedly, and needless to say, I can see some broken controllers over this. A dehancer for sure. Moving on, the game does a reasonable job in the level variety, as it mixes up things between combat arenas, laser puzzles, and small platforming challenges. And all of them are designed well. It isn't just to add another blurb on the store page. Sure, the game throws a series of the same things at you in the different level segments of the game, all in one batch. But luckily, it doesn't overstay its welcome during that time, and goes away just in time for a boss fight. And the game does allow you some freedom to explore and go different routes, even if you need to go through all those routes in the end. A small issue comes up with that, however. See, there are certain segments where the game gives you a direct hint of how to get through a specific area. And that's great, except if you so happen to go another way as opposed to the one that gave you the hint. Now, I can't confirm exactly if those hints don't show up in the other areas and it just so happens I went to the first path. But the thing is, if you're stuck on a particular section, try going down another path that is available to you, as it may give you what you need in terms of information. And Metroidvania games are known for their secrets. In this game, it's the soul system. Within areas, you can find souls via touching a certain area, or blowing a hole in the wall. This will release all the souls into the area, and collect them all, and you'll get a reward. It could be an upgrade, it could be more energy cubes, or it could be a hilarious geek enhancement that'll change the game. Secret lovers, this is your game. If you like to 100% complete games like this, then you're going to be rewarded with it. So add an enhancer at the end of this review. However, I did want to actually have a hint of where the secrets were. The game at times has it in segments that have no indicators, and you're just wildly flying around in ghost form, trying to find what segment you might have missed in this Souls area. A shine, a crack, something to indicate the secret would have been helpful here. Instead, you pretty much have to try everything, and that got annoying. Now, for the upgrades of the game, let me tell you, there are a couple of them you should get right away. Sure, you've got a variety of upgrades here, and you can configure it to your playstyle, and they have reasonable effects. Regardless, get the ghost speed and double jump abilities immediately. It improves the pacing of the game immensely, especially with the soul system. Going around with your ghost and trying to find any secrets you missed at the original slow pace, yeah, it was a bit boring. That ghost speed upgrade not only helps vitally to move things along, it makes me wonder why that wasn't the default speed to begin with. Now, I've said a lot of good things about this game. Sure, I've been critical, but I haven't said anything about the worst part of the game like I usually do. Well, sadly, the game doesn't escape that section, because in terms of stability, that's where the game has its major issues. Performance-wise, the game is fine, hitting 60 FPS and not noticing huge amount of frame drops, just one or two here or there. It's the crashes. Several times I had major crashes with this game, and in fact, 2 hard crashes. That sucks, and it happened on 2 different testing systems as well. Now, some of it seems to be in the change of context when alt-tabbing out of the game in full screen mode, but there seems to be some sort of memory leak as well, as I noticed that the memory used seemed to reasonably increase as the game stayed open, never going down. If you get this game, be aware that it's probably going to have some problems for you. Now, I saw a bunch of builds before and after the launch of the game, so the dev seems to be responsive. It's just that, well, I have to call the game as I see it, and right now, it's a bit unstable. In conclusion, Ghost 1.0 surprised me with some of its depth in certain features, and its ability to keep things fresh over the gameplay's life. Combat was fun, exploring was fun, and despite the frustrations that occurred with crashes and precision sections, I enjoyed my time with the game, and I could see this being an indie hit this year. It's got that X factor, that unique geeky feel that plays to an audience, and it's clear that a lot of detail and effort went into this game. In the end, it scores an 86 out of 100 for me, which makes it a solid buy unless you're hurting for cash. Now, like always, make sure you check the enhancers to adjust the score accordingly based on strong preferences. And having done this so many times, it's getting really hard to really talk about these sections without repeating things over and over again. And so I'm writing filler information here so that the information on screen can stay up longer so people playing a game can glance over if they've got this YouTube video up in the background. And yes, I consider that in the presentation of the review. Yes, I'm crazy. To finish things off, it's nice to see that the Metroidvania genre is still alive. Even if Samus Aran and Simon Belmont haven't necessarily kept the flame going in recent years, we've seen some great games in the genre over the past year. Games like Ghost 1.0, games like Rabby Ribby. Hopefully that continues, and maybe it'll give certain companies more confidence to try the games of old genres, like the Blue Bomber for example. And before you ask, yes, I'll be reviewing Mighty No. 9. And yes, I'm actually scared to review that game because I think it's going to be horrible, despite not being an anime fan on prom night. Thanks for watching. Like the video, share it with a friend, and subscribe if you want more content like this. In the description below, you'll find the Steam review accompanying this vid, along with social media that you can follow me on, Twitter, Google+, and Facebook groups. And if you want to support the channel, click that Patreon on the left of the screen. And remember, keep on gaming.